Hi, Tyler.
Hi, Sally.
Hi,
Hi,
listeners.
listeners. Welcome to our podcast today.
Yeah, it's the best podcast.
In our opinion.
Oh, boy.
Intro still needs work.
We'll get there. It'll be great. I think a lot of podcasts have that issue. It's not an issue, that opportunity.
That's so funny. I've been doing a lot of animal card readings lately, and I've been doing a lot of the path, the obstacle readings, but instead of calling things the obstacle, I've started calling them the invitation.
Yeah, that's much more fun.
This is your invitation to deepen.
Mm-hmm. I say invitation all the time.
Yeah, it's a good word.
Yeah, it is.
Oh my goodness. Sally.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best thing that's happened to you since we last recorded?
A lot of great things have happened. I went to Justin's holiday party, and after a lot of stress and annoyance and anxiety, it all turned out great.
Do you want to elaborate on that at all?
Yeah, I learned last minute that this year they were stressing the dress code. And
because last year no one dressed up and they were pissed.
Last year there were a lot more people in jeans and whatever. So I had my outfit picked out for weeks, and I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to wear, and I'm going to be so comfortable. It was just leggings and a sweater, and it was going to be great. And then the night before, he's like, yeah, so we have to wear, we have to dress up. Everybody's wearing a dress, blah, blah, blah. Oh my God, I was so annoyed. There are no words for how annoyed I was.
Wait, you have to say the part about how you were like, well, what kind of dress? And Justin was not helpful at all.
Yeah, no, he doesn't know how to describe these things. So he was like, a dress. And I was like, is it cocktail attire? He's like, I think that they're wearing cocktail attire. He was
just repeating the words that you're saying.
Repeating back to me.
You could have been a ball gown, and he would have been like, yes, I think it's a ball gown.
So that was great. And I really don't like shopping in person, and I hate last minute shopping. Oh my God, it's really up there with some of my least favorite things.
It seems like that's a good invitation for you to change how you experience that.
Well,
kind of
yeah. So then I had to I didn't have to, but then I was okay, breathing through all of it, and was setting all the commitments, and was every step of this journey is going to be pleasurable and fun, and I'm going to laugh, and it's going to be so great and feel so good. But yeah, I had to move through a lot of annoyance and just be real about my annoyance. Mm-hmm. Before really allowing that in, and then it was great. Then I got home, because then of course the outfit changed my entire plan. I hadn't planned on washing or drying or straightening my hair.
Yeah, but with a nicer outfit, it's
exactly. And then I had been oh well, maybe I'll file my nails, because I hadn't gotten my nails done. I still haven't gotten my nails done, so I was maybe I'll file them, but I won't remove the nail polish, because who cares? But then I was well, now I need to remove the nail polish. So, it just added a lot of steps. And then I was okay, well then I guess I'm going to wear my contacts instead of my glasses. So now I have to do my eyebrows. So
wow,
it hijacked
this
my
really
day.
was a cascading.
Yes, exactly. This is why I was so annoyed.
Yeah.
But I was talking to, and I had to wax this bottom half of my legs.
You can do that yourself?
Yes, because I had to.
Yeah.
So then I think that from the moment I started talking to Sasha, to my sister Sasha, then that's when things, I was oh no, this is going to be fun. This is going to be really fun. Because then I was Sasha, I can't get a wax. Oh, so that's what happened. I got home. I was okay, well, I'll just get a wax, because I need a wax anyway. But then I couldn't, because if you had a wax pass, their system was down. So if you had a wax pass, you couldn't get a wax. You had to pay for it. And I was well, I'm not going to pay for a wax. I have wax passes. So I was okay, what am I going to do? So I was Sasha, do I shave? Do I get Nair? What can I do? Because I don't want to screw up.
Nair.
Yeah. It's I don't want to screw up all the work of having my hair thin out and all that stuff. So she was no, you have to get an at-home wax kit. But by that point I was already home. And as we already covered, I suddenly had all these things I had to do. So I told Justin that he had to pick it up for me. And he was like,
your party.
he was so panicked that he like called me immediately, and he was like, I have to pick it up for you. Like, how am I gonna know what it is? I'm like, it's okay, don't worry. Just like call me from the Rite Aid. Like, it's gonna be fine. And so yeah, so then from then on, everything was great. I like my nails were while my nails were soaking. I did my eyebrows per Sasha's suggestion. She was like, it'll save you lots of time. It'll be easier than you think, and it was. And it was great. And then I did my hair. I took a really quick shower. And I was getting my makeup done, and then Justin like got home, and then he called me from the Rite Aid, and I was like walking through every single hair option. It was great. It was a lot of fun, and I had a really wonderful time.
Well, I'm glad that you enjoyed the getting ready process in the end.
Yeah, it was fun.
Hooray.
And the night was great, and so we stayed out like way later than we did last year, and then we went to a bar after, and it was always like Justin's like closest work friends, or what I consider his closest work friends. I guess I don't know if they actually are, but they're all the ones that I like. So, so that was really great, and I feel like I did a sufficient job of convincing them to stay friends with me, even if Justin may or may not, now that he's not going to be working at Lionsgate anymore.
Well, mission accomplished.
That's my story. Yeah, it was great. Was the best. And then I got like almost drunk, definitely very tipsy, which I have not been in a very long time, but the old fashioned that they had there was very, very strong.
I had an old fashioned last night.
They were the best.
Really good.
So that's the best thing that happened to me, is that what was going to be a terrible experience was great. Lots of fun. Lots of fun. And Justin looked really hot too. So we looked fabulous together.
I saw some pics. You guys did look good.
So that's it. That's the best thing that happened to me. There were other things, but that story took longer than I expected. What about you?
Oh my gosh, so much good stuff has happened. Well, my mom and her puppy Neville arrived in New York City yesterday morning for the Christmas holiday.
So good.
So I feel really excited that they're here. And I don't know what else is the best thing. Oh, Matt got new headshots, and
oh my
goodness,
they're so good. Wait, before you even proceed, I have to tell you that when we were at the bar, because I hadn't really talked to Justin and all the getting ready, and I was like, Justin, I have to show you Matt's new headshots. I was like, I don't care that you don't care, but I care so much that I have to show you.
Well, they're amazing, and I was like out shopping when he got them, and he started sending them to me one at a time, and I just had to like pull over, not like, like when you're like shopping, I had to like step to the side of the aisle. I was like, I cannot shop and look at these at the same time. And I was just like sending them, or I was looking at them, and I was like, oh my God, like you look famous in these photos. You look like you're already famous. And I was like, well, and that's the energy that we're going for. And then I sent them to Meredith, friend of the podcast, and her response was, oh my God, he's gonna be so famous. And I was like, I know, these are the best headshots I've ever seen. Also, he just looks so hot in them. It's funny how like you can live with a person day in and day out and see them every day, and then you see a picture of them and you're like, holy shit, my boyfriend is fine.
Yep, I feel you.
Anyway, so that was really fun and exciting.
It was great. It added joy to my life, for sure.
Well, I'm really glad. And if anybody wants to see Matt's headshots, I think by the time this airs, hopefully they'll be up on his website, mattstanko.com. He'd probably be mortified that I'm like doing a little plug. I can't wait to put that in the show notes for everybody who wants to go check out my hunky boyfriend.
He looks super hunky.
Well, also the best thing that happened to me is that we get to record this podcast today. I'm so excited.
Me too.
Because our guest today is like one of my all-time favorite humans on the face of the earth, and I've been wanting to have her on the podcast for months and months, and my face is starting to hurt because I'm smiling so hard right now while I'm introducing her. I'm so excited, and I feel like I talk about her sometimes on the podcast.
You do.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, the suspense is killing me. Cracking myself up over here. So everybody, our guest this week on A Year Ago Today is my incredible friend, Jahna. Hi, Jahna.
Hi, guys.
Yay!
Hey.
We're doing it. We're here.
We're here, y'all. Oh man, I'm like literally in a corner, like next to a utility closet in my apartment. But I think I know that this is where like the good energy is. So this is great.
Oh my goodness, it's so funny. We've had
Oh,
so many
yeah,
technical problems getting
Yeah.
on this call, and keeping like, Jahna, get closer to your internet.
Oh man, that's about as close as I can get without actually being in my roommate's
Oh my
room.
goodness.
So.
Ah.
Oh,
All
oh
right.
boy.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
The other side note that is so fun for me is that Jahna, I think, is my only friend that, well, I don't want to say that. If you're my friend and you also listen to the podcast every week, like, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. But Jahna's the only person that I, like, know for sure
Of
in
course.
my life that listens to the podcast every week. And it makes me so happy. And then I just feel like she already knows everything that's going on in my life, kind of. And it's like, I don't have to feel much when I spend so much when I
That's
see
really
her.
handy.
It is handy.
I like that.
So anyway, Jahna, thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited that you're here. I want to invite you. Didn't get really centered in what was going on in your life a year ago today. And try to really go back to how you were feeling in your physical body. And when you are in that space, share with us in one word how you're feeling, please.
Relieved.
Oh, that's not what I was expecting you to say.
That's a good one, though.
Yeah. Well, so a year ago today, Jahna had just experienced a breakup. And the interesting thing is, I feel like I know a lot about this story and also don't know a lot about this story at the same time. So I'm really excited to have you here to talk with us. So this breakup was a big like demarcation point, I feel like, in your life. It was like before the breakup, after the breakup. Is that true?
Yeah. It was the end of my first relationship ever in my life. And I feel I feel like if ever the phrase go big or go home was more applicable to anything, it was this. I it was. I learned so much about myself through this experience, more than I ever thought possible, and also not in the ways that I ever thought I'd learn them. And that was both very difficult and completely amazing, and was one of the times where I felt emotionally the fullest that I'd ever had, in terms of like feeling all of the emotions at all ends and spaces of the spectrum at once.
Well, I really was not expecting relieved to be the word. I thought you were going to be like fucking shitty. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Definitely. So the person that I was with was also in a long distance relationship with someone who lived on the other side of the country. And when I'd met him, we were both in the same creative space. And it was interesting because it wasn't necessarily like, I met him and like sparks were flying or whatever. And it was interesting also because I'd gotten into this group, and they always say it happens when you're not looking. And that phrase always frustrated me because as someone who was very preoccupied by having this thing that I feel like everyone else in my life had, I'm like, how in the world are you ever... I actually don't understand how you're ever not looking. And then I'd, do the whole thing where I was like, I'm not looking. And of course...
You mean to be in a relationship?
Yes. Yeah. And, you know, I would tell myself that I'm not looking, and of course it doesn't work because that like you're still looking.
I'm not hunting for a boyfriend. I'm definitely not shopping around for a boyfriend. I'm definitely not hoping to meet anyone today.
This is me. This is what I sound like when I'm not thinking about this. And so, but then I got into this group, and it was something that I'd wanted for so long, and I was so excited, and it was gonna, you know, advance my professional career. And so it was one of the first times in my life that I really wasn't thinking about it. And like at the time, I was so unhappy at my job. I was so unhappy in a lot of ways, in so many ways. And then I was like, yes, this thing, I got it. This is going to change my life. I'm going to make this change my life.
Was that Youngblood?
Yeah.
Is it okay to say the name here?
Yeah.
Okay. Jahna's a playwright.
Yeah.
And Youngblood is a group that fosters young playwrights.
So I was like, I got it, and I was like, yes, here we go. And then I met him, and I was like, okay. And it was funny because I feel like the first time we met one another, I consider myself like a pretty intuitive person, and someone who is able to get a fairly accurate read on people within first meeting them, not as a judgment to shut down and not talk to them, but I feel like I can be like, okay, to me you feel like this. And I remember meeting him, and I couldn't do that immediately, and that's something that I take note of if there's someone that I feel like I can't feel that frequency with as quickly as I'm used to. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then we were at a performance, and it happened, and it was great. And then after there's a party, we're hanging out at the party, and we were talking, and something that really struck me was that he wouldn't let me sort of perform my usual quote-unquote performance in a casual conversation. He would like call me out on what I was doing, and that really took me aback, and I was like, oh, okay, I see you. You see me too. I get it. Okay. So.
Oh my God, I love this.
So that really that immediately made me let down my guard, and we were talking, and because I hadn't seen him at the meetings that we'd had previously when the year started, and so I was, asked him where he had been, and he said that he was in California visiting his girlfriend, and I was like, oh, that must be hard being so far away from her. And then he began to describe how they're in an open relationship, but he's also not sure that he really likes this city, and is, very much loves California, and is planning on moving there. And he was asking me how I felt about the city. I was like, I love this city. If I died here, I would be fine with that. And then the conversation sort of ended. You didn't, go beyond that, as conversations at parties often do. So then it just sort of, I was going to say escalated, but I don't really know if that's the right word. I guess it escalated rather quickly, because then I was like, oh, that was a nice conversation. He seems like a pretty cool guy, but it also wasn't necessarily a situation where I was like, oh my goodness, I want to surround myself with this person constantly at first.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
When you first heard that he was in an open relationship, what was your immediate emotional, physical reaction to that inside your body? Were you was it like an opening, or was it like a distancing from that?
Ooh, great question. I think it was both, if that's possible. I was just coming off of seeing someone who I would not say that I was in a relationship with, who had a lot of interesting views about that, and had spent a lot of time telling me how it was, and telling me this and telling me that, and telling me why it works. And so initially there was that sort of resistance to it because of that, but also in that, with that particular person, I saw how unhappy he was in general, and I felt like you really, in saying this, I feel like you're trying to prove a lot of this stuff yourself. So then when I met the guy that I dated for a year, I was like, this doesn't feel like that to me. So that's really interesting. And he had an openness about him that made it seem inviting and made it seem less angry than this other guy had like previously explained to me about it. And I honestly I thought too how hard it must be. Like I have to be in the same physical space with the person. And I know that about myself.
When did open relationships become so popular? When I was in an open relationship, nobody was in an open relationship.
It feels like everybody is now.
The only people that were in open relationships were like significantly older than us. And so I had to keep like reaching out to people on the internet. Thank God for feminist blogging, because otherwise I would not have had any community around or support around open relationships. This is like fascinating to me, just that two guys back to back that you dated were in open relationship. I'm like blown away.
Okay, girl, yes. So
okay, and also
yeah,
the interesting thing to just point out is that we attract things.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
It's interesting that that's what you would attract.
Yeah. To a point where now I'm doing a lot of work also in examining why that is. And I think I know it has a lot to do with what I had in the past internalized as what I think I deserve, and also being scared to find someone who I would actually have to allow myself to be that open and that vulnerable with and that close to, even though it's something that I want so much, which is so interesting. It's like I'm both made very nervous by it, but it's like, but I want it.
It's so interesting. I'm thinking as you're talking, I have another friend, and she is constantly ending up in emotional entanglements with men who are married or otherwise like seriously committed.
Yeah.
And it's painful for her, and at the same time it's like, okay, this is a clear pattern now.
Right.
It's time to look at this and get really real with yourself about why you're adding this extra barrier in to actually receiving the kind of love that I know deep down you want to receive. It's like,
yeah,
I don't know. I know you and I have talked about this already, but
yes, but yeah, it's something that I feel like I have to keep talking about also, because it helps me get deeper and deeper into releasing whatever this belief is, or whatever this belief is that tends to attract these people who, for the most part, are lovely people, but I know from literally with this gentleman, it's like I knew from the get-go that he could not give me what I wanted. Like, he told me that.
We'll be like, okay, yeah, eyes open here, and I'm going to proceed straight ahead.
Like, exactly. And it's like he was saying, it was fun, and it was cool, and it was whatever. I didn't really think anything about it. And then we had another event, and I remember, like, I said a joke to someone else, and he happened to be next to me when I said it. And then he just happened to overhear your very funny joke to Jahna. I was being hilarious, as I do. And he I don't know, I was like looking around and see like, yeah, who thought that was funny? And then he gave me he looked at me, and then the look lingered, and I was like, was that flirtatious? I can't tell. So then later on, we were all going to the bar after this particular event, and he was like, you gonna go to the bar? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, good. And I was like, okay, that was definitely flirtatious. So I found myself being...
I love that so much when you're flirting with somebody new.
It's so fun. It's so fun. It's so fun. And then, so I found myself, we were at the bar, we were talking, and he just got me to immediately open up about so much. I felt so comfortable talking to him, and he was just so warm and so incredibly inviting in a way that I had personally not really experienced with other guys before. um, romantically or platonically. So I was like, oh, this just feels really good. And this is the first time that I feel like I'm having an interaction with a guy and not hoping for something romantic out of it, or not like angling. I'm actually just present with this person. Mm-hmm. And that felt really, really nice. And then the conversation progressed, more drinks were had. And it just opened up that, you know, this could be, he and I could be something that we explore. Particularly given, and it also, I surprised myself because a lot of the conversation was around people that we dated in the past and our relationships and our relationships to intimacy. And he talked a lot about his girlfriend, and I was so, not blown away, but I was just so like, wow, I'm impressed that you managed to maintain this deep connection, being so far away from one another. That fascinates me, and how much trust that requires, and how much communication specifically that requires. And then I really liked that, and I really liked, and he was showing me, in communicating with him, he was showing me how good that could feel to talk to someone that
there's
way.
So many things like in that are really attractive.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it was
like,
almost,
I have my eyes wide open. I see exactly what I'm walking into, but it feels
right.
so good.
It feels so nice, and it feels just so full and so warm, and like a place where I want to be. So in that conversation we had about relationships and about what we were looking for, I was very honest in that I wanted someone who could be a partner, but that I was open to exploring, because I did not have really any experience in this arena at all. He was the first person who I had ever like dated consistently in my life. So like nothing in high school, nothing in college. And I had a lot of insecurities surrounding that and why that wasn't happening. But I finally felt in a place where I didn't feel desperate about it. So at the same token, I was like, I do want to explore, and I do want to see what this feels like, and take it, you know, one step at a time, and really get to know me in every stage of this. But also at the same time, I want the thing. Like, I want the thing. I want the committed, full thing. So it was like, I want to have the growing pains because I feel like they're important, but I also just really don't. I want to get over that. And like, I want to just have what I want right now. So then he's like, okay, this is where I'm at. I have someone that I love very much, and she lives across the country. But also, we are open to having relationships and having emotional connections with other people while we're away from one another. And if you feel like this is something that could be part of your exploratory process, then I would really like to be part of that. And I said to myself, you know, I like you. And yeah, this feels good. This feels good to me right now. And so it continued. And it sounds so like a small thing, but at the time, he was the first person that I'd ever been intimate with who like texted me back, which sounds so sad as I say it out loud, but was the truth. It was both amazing at so many points, and there were so many things that made me so happy. He was one of the first people to ask me how I felt, like one of the first guys that I'd ever been with to ask me how I felt about anything. Not to say that the other people that I'd been with were terrible monsters at all, but for them, it was not that. And to be with this person and to have him tell me that he cares about me, and have him ask me, you know, how I'm doing with this. Because with this being my first relationship, and particularly being my first relationship with someone who was also in a very committed relationship with somebody else. I was navigating, I feel like, a lot at once. And it was sort of a crash course in showing me in practice how I felt about a lot of these aspects and in certain arenas of a relationship. But he was very consistent in checking in with me as to how I felt about it every step of the way. Like, what's going on for you right now? And one of the biggest things that I took away from this, one of the biggest things that I learned, is that when it came time to express the harder feelings and the harder emotions that I was going through, I, in the past, have been someone who has to go away to have emotions and deal with them privately. And I was going to say, and come back to the other person, but usually, at least in the past, there wasn't a come back to the other person. It was just I had the emotions, and then I dealt with it by myself, and then I would go back to that person being fine.
Quote,
and
quote,
I was so confrontation averse that I tried to approach a two-person problem or two-person opportunity to have more communication. I liked what you were saying earlier about it not being an issue. By solving it by myself. And I realized quickly that within this relationship, that was actually making me, I felt crazy. I felt so crazy. So he was the first person to ask me, please tell me, this is only going to work if you tell me how you feel, if you tell me what is going on for you. And I realized that even though I am someone who I consider myself quite articulate, very vocal, I'm a writer, words are what I love, words are what I do, but when he would ask me that question, I was so overwhelmed with emotion that I couldn't speak, and that was so frustrating for me.
What was really coming through for me while you were talking is you were talking about, going away to deal with a problem by yourself, and also talking about being in I was having this thought, wow, it's so interesting. It's your first, I think, really emotionally involved relationship. It seems that it would also be with this added obstacle of being with a person who is also with someone else.
Yeah.
It's that's so much a relationship is, I think most relationships are challenging because that's the nature of being in relationship. Mm-hmm. And to add that on top of it is just whoa. And so the question that I had coming through was there any energy for you on a subconscious level, even if you weren't consciously aware of it, of if I am whatever enough, good enough, or calm and cool and collected enough about this whole open relationship thing or whatever, that this person that I really am attracted to and have feelings for will love me best, will choose me, and then I will ultimately get what I want, which is to be with just this person. I'm just wondering if that was operating for you.
It was at 100%, and then also I feel at times was not, and that shocked me. Like you said, it's there's so much work required in being in a relationship anyway, and then
even a great relationship,
even a wonderful relationships require energy and time and effort, and hopefully in a way that doesn't feel like either party is sacrificing too much, but it's not just going to happen by itself. And so this checking in while was really helpful, and it gave me definitely a push to include him on what was going on with me. I was also just constantly crying. I was just always tears. Good tears, bad tears, always tears.
Alone or in front of him, or both?
That was the thing, though. In front of him. Both actually. But also it's the first time that I'd felt comfortable doing that in front of the person. But I actually said to him, I'm I don't want to be the one who cries. I don't want you to feel I'm going to go see her again, and she's going to cry, and I'm going to comfort her.
I've been in that relationship before.
Yeah, it's I want to be fun. I want to be I got nervous that he was going to start to approach me with kid gloves.
Mm.
I didn't want the checking in to be what our relationship was about, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
And so from that mindset and from that mentality, I often wanted to be like exactly what you said. It's just so cool, so easy, so fine with everything. If I love him hard enough, if I show him how much I love him, then, then he'll see, because, he was someone who truly said, I care about you and I think you're wonderful. But then I felt like what always came after that was, but. Rather than, I think I care about you and I think you're wonderful. And it was really, really difficult for me to believe that he cared about me and thought I was wonderful. And then a but could still follow. And I was like, well, if you think I'm wonderful and I'm here,
how is this not an obvious decision?
Exactly, exactly. Like, if we are theoretically on the same page, why is this not happening? Why is this not happening for us? I don't understand how you love, and sometimes when you show me how you love me, it's not the way I thought it was going to look. It doesn't feel the way I thought it was going to feel, and might not be the way that I need to be shown it. And to get to that place, to make that evolution, took a long time, and at times hurt a lot, and at times made me happier than I feel like I'd ever been in that way. And with no other person have I ever experienced like such a full range of emotion. And it was so interesting because like there were points at which I felt crazy because I was not used to having so many emotions at once, and learning to trust someone with my heart was like, Amy Schumer has this joke that she's like, I don't understand when people feel like, or people say falling in love is so amazing and it feels so good, but do they actually remember falling in love? She's like, it's terrifying and a lot of times painful and crazy making. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, for me learning to trust him was so scary for reasons that I think I knew. It's like, Jahna, he can't give you what you want. So let's take a look at, why you're trying to give all of yourself to him. But I also was like, I want the experience of this, though, and it might not feel the way I thought it was going to feel, but I think it's important for me to have it, and I think it's important for me to learn from it. I definitely did think that if I threw all of myself at him, that it would work, quote unquote. But that didn't include him in the equation. That didn't include him.
I was going to say, I have a couple of questions. One is that, like, you sound, in retrospect, or, I mean, talking about it now, it sounds like you were like, this hurts, but this is an important learning experience, so I'm going to stay. And I want to know if that was actually the conscious energy that you were in when you were going through it, or if that's just something that you have as you've like processed this experience that you've come to understand.
When I was going through it, I don't think I realized how much energy it was costing me. And I say this for myself. When I say crazy, I don't mean it to have any sort of I feel like I'm aware of the fact that women can sometimes be described as crazy when they get emotional. But I felt out of control of my emotions in a way that made me feel like, I'm like, who am I? What is going on? So when I felt like I was getting to that very anxious, sort of unstable point, I was like, oh, ding, 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 ding. This is an indication that I need to talk to him about what is bothering me. And even though that seems obvious, it took me a little while to learn. But then once I started doing that and we started communicating, we were usually able to work through whatever I had questions about or felt unsure about, or at least I got an answer to, so that I wasn't wondering, because the wondering was what was making me so anxious, and like the trying to predict his actions and trying in my head deciding how he felt about a thing rather than just asking him how he felt about this thing. So, and then I would do that, and then I would feel amazing again. So I think in that I was only focusing on the growth that I was making and not sometimes about how much it made me sad sometimes or how much it hurt me sometimes. And then in looking back at it was interesting. I was reading my journal entries from when I was with him, and just reading them, I got to an emotional place of like starting to feel like how I felt when, like, I guess underneath of what I was focusing on or what I was not including or looking at when I was with him. And I got back to there immediately, and I was like, oh wow, it's so interesting that I didn't consciously see this, what I'm feeling right now. I didn't see this then.
What were you feeling?
I was feeling like I was standing in fog and I didn't know where to go. And I couldn't see anything. So while it didn't feel immediately threatening, it's also like I don't know where I am. I don't know what's going on. And I don't know which direction is going to lead me to. Am I going to walk into something amazing? Is the fog going to clear? Or am I going to walk into something painful? Mm-hmm. And the possibility of both of those things being equally present. And wanting to move and wanting to trust myself that I knew which direction to move in, but also not trusting myself that I knew which direction to move in.
Well, it's not a safe feeling.
No, it's not.
Well, there's so interesting. When you're talking about this relationship, not on the surface of it, but energetically, I'm like, I've been in this relationship.
Yeah.
And it's what's really coming through for me, speaking of my own experience, is feeling of, it's like convincing the person how much you're worth loving.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's doing it almost through how much you're willing to suffer on behalf of the relationship. And it's like, I'm willing to stay here in this pain and uncertainty and feeling of not being safe because I love you so much. And hoping that that is going to convince the person to treat you the way that you want to be treated, rather than being like, you know what? Fuck this shit. Doesn't feel good. And I would like to go where it's sunny, please, or raining. It could be raining, but it's like to be in a place where I really can't see and not know if that's ever going to change, and like that constant state of anxiety.
I do want to be clear in that another way that I punished myself was the fact that he verbally, very clearly gave me opportunities. He would tell me, he's like, if ever this doesn't feel good to you, we don't have to do this.
Right, and yet.
Right.
You stayed.
Yeah, exactly. I kept being like, yeah, here, for sure.
You're like, yeah, this feels terrible, but I love you and I want to prove that, and I'm going to stay in what feels bad.
But I love you. This feels terrible, but I love you, and that is worth it.
I'm like remembering like me crying on the floor of my bedroom and Sally just like kind of sitting there looking at me when I've been in this place being like, why doesn't he love me enough to show up for my birthday or whatever it is, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, none of these things, the entire time that you've been talking, I'm like, well, none of these problems are because he was in an open relationship. Not even one of them.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, it's all universal.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, it is true that an open relationship adds its own set of, challenges and whatever. But, like, in hearing what you're saying, most of those things that would normally come up were not really the things that you were dealing with. I mean, besides the fact of like, oh, well, he's going to choose me. That is a common one of like, oh, if you're not a person who's also like all in on the open relationship front, then I think that is something that's always operating. But besides that one, it's like all of these things are just relationship things. It just so happened that he was in an open relationship.
Well, because I think it's all about, as we grow into adulthood and learn how to engage inside romantic relationship, that almost everybody is kind of unavailable in some way.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's because we never learned how to, like, that's
Yeah,
not a
well,
thing that they teach in school. This
I
is how you are
blame
in a relationship.
the education system.
I agree.
And also my parents.
Well, this is a really great plug for Relationships First, which is like an initiative to teach people, and including young people, how to be in relationship and how to like use relationships as an opportunity to grow and to learn about the
Yeah.
world and to learn about yourself and to not look at them in this like antagonistic, fraught way. Like, I think that people often think of relationships in like very black and white terms, which is really weird because I find that out of like any growth opportunity or like any situation that we're in, it's probably the least black and white.
I like to think of it sometimes in like, there are things you know with your head, you head know, and then there are things you know with your heart and you heart know. I'm just constantly learning sometimes and being surprised by within myself where those disconnects lie within me. If I were to say that out loud, my head would say it's black and white. You either want to be with me or you don't want to be with me. And then my heart is so clearly like, no, you both have very strong feelings for one another. And maybe this isn't what you thought it would look like, but it's what it feels like. And that's very real. And that was very difficult for me to sort of reconcile within myself. And I struggled. I struggled in trusting that. I struggled in trusting the good of it. And I struggled in trusting that it was going to be what it was rather than trying to muscle it into something else. And of course, the more that I tried to muscle it into something else, the more difficult it became. Mm-hmm. The more it tried to wriggle out of my grasp, and then the tighter I tried to hold it. And all of this also is on top of the fact that he, in that first conversation we had, we talked about his possibly moving to California, and then that became an increasingly real possibility over the course of our relationship. And so that I knew that at some point he was leaving, which is also a struggle because it's like I'm falling deeper and deeper, into emotional connection with this person, and he's literally telling me I'm not going to be here in like 5 minutes. And wanting to, in my head, wanting to stop myself from going to that emotional place with him, but my heart not wanting to do that. My heart knowing that this is not going to turn out the way that you ideally thought it should. But I am getting to flex so many muscles right now that I've not gotten to flex. And I'm excited by that. And I said, okay, heart, we'll go with you. Mm-hmm. We'll go with you. And I think that's why I felt relieved when he left, because I had not realized how much energy, the fog cleared when he left. That's what happened. And I had not realized how much energy I had put into it, how much time and how much brain space and how much heart space I'd given to this thing. And there was also the added thing of the fact that I realized I'd put so much energy into this thing with this man who's going to fly off to California to be with the woman that he'd, initially loved in the first place. And it was just so, that was the moment where I felt like, you did all of this, you did a lot of this, I was going to say work, you did a lot of this participation and a lot of this growth for you, which has been invaluable and which I would never take away for the world, and which I loved even when it felt hurtful. But at the same time, it's so funny that you did all of this and then sort of, it still came back to square one. You did all of this for someone who you knew at the beginning was not going to end up with you and had his heart in a place with someone else. And in that way too, it also, I think going into it, in the beginning, initially thought that he was going to be different. He was going to be the guy who because I had a tendency in the past to be attracted to men who were unavailable because of my own insecurities. But then I was like, he's going to be the guy who that's going to be different with.
Yeah,
I'm in
because he's
control.
totally
I see what's
available.
going on. Exactly. He asks me how I feel. He's here for me, emotionally. He's here. He's physically here. He's physically here. And then when he left, I was like, he was actually just the opus of the thing, of the guy that I can't have. The guy that I can't have. Even though he showed me the ways in which someone could care about me, he was still that guy. And like you said, Kyla, it's like he told me he was not going to be this guy for me. The guy that rather I wanted him to be, or in my head I thought that I wanted at the time. He's like, I can't be that for you. I can't be that for you. I can't be that for you. And it wasn't until he left where I was finally like, oh, he couldn't be that for me.
He told me that the first time we ever talked. Should have listened.
I hear that now. Right, exactly. Like, because he would say it before, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not really understanding what that means.
I feel like what's really coming up for me right now is I guess I'm wondering what I would do in his shoes. Like, I feel as though I hope, this is the person that I hope that I am. That I would say, after it became evident how much you were suffering, because that's what you were doing, even with the good parts, to be the person who says, you know what? I'm 100% that I can't be what you need. And I care about you deeply. And I'm going to walk away from this because you deserve to have what you need. And it's like, I don't know. I know that's I don't know if that's actually how I would react if I really did have deep feelings for someone and wanted to be near them and the other person that I loved was far away. So there's also maybe that element of selfishness and wanting someone here and now. But it's like, I would hope that I would be the kind of person that would say, you know what, this isn't good for you, and I have some power to do something that's going to support you by actually not being with you anymore.
I've thought about this recently, and I am almost 100% certain that I would not do that. Because the other thing that, is really important about relationships in particular, but also life, is, your ability to take responsibility for your life. And it is not my responsibility to take responsibility for your life. And so it's, I cannot imagine a situation where, unless the other person was like, it physically hurts me when we're near each other, then I might be like, well, then why do you keep coming here? You should maybe go. But otherwise, it's like, well, you're still here, you're still showing up as yourself. We're learning, we're discussing, we're growing. It doesn't, maybe it doesn't always feel good, but if it were to still feel good to me, I cannot imagine a situation where I'd be like, well, because we don't know, what the other person is feeling and how much they're getting out of something. So, I don't know. The reason that I've been thinking about it so much is because I have often been, not often, it probably only happened twice, but I have been in the situation where the other person, I have the power to leave the situation that the other person is, making me not feel so good. And in those instances, I never was like, hey guy, this is not making me feel good, so what do you think we should do? I've just been like, well, right, but it still makes me feel good enough for me to stay here, and whether that was true or not, that's what I believed. And so that's not his responsibility to then come to me and be like, well, I don't think that that's true, because if anything, that would probably upset me, because
he tried that, and I got so angry.
Yeah, because they're taking away your power. Even though it seems like, oh, well, I'm the person, in a position of power, blah, blah, blah. But, then you're taking the other person's, advocacy and power and, all of that
agency.
stuff away. Yeah, agency. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Like you're taking it away because you're making a decision for them that they did not ask you to make.
Well, I don't know that I would be making it for them, though. I mean, I guess the way I said it, it really would sound that way. But it, like, I guess for me, it would be like, you know what? Like, well, and again, we don't know the degrees ever. But it would be like, I can see that this is hurting you, and that doesn't feel good to me. You know, it's like, it's back to what Jahna said about, like, do I have to start treating this person with kid gloves? Or, like, as, like, starting to wonder, like, they're crying all the time. It's like, there is a point at which, I don't know. Maybe this is a huge oversimplification. And like I said, I'm not in the situation. But I feel like taking care of myself at this point in my life would be like, you know, I don't actually want to be involved in this because it doesn't feel good to you all the time. And I feel like I'm causing you pain. And that doesn't feel good to me.
Yeah.
You know, and so it ultimately would be, I think, me taking care of myself. Which, of course, then it's clear why, like when you say it that way, it's clear why so many more people don't do that. Is because taking care of ourselves in that way is kind of like the ultimate self-care. And I think that that's a really challenging thing for a lot of people to do. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I'm just being your imaginary ex-boyfriend, Jahna. It's like, I can say now, like, I hope I would walk away because I could see that I was hurting you and because that didn't feel good to me. And at the same time, if I do care about you deeply, wanting to be close to you, even though there is pain involved for both of us. I don't know. Relationships are complicated.
I really love hearing you explain it that way, Tyla, because I never really thought about it that way, in that I felt at the time very, very similarly to how you just explained it, Sally, in that I felt like he was making a decision about us based on how he thought I felt. Mm-hmm. And I was so frustrated, and I said, do not do
Which
that.
Is so funny, because you just told us that you would, like, try to go away.
Exactly.
And be, like, imagining how you think he feels, and that was the source of so much of your pain.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and that hypocrisy didn't dawn on me until much later. Because that happened, and he said, you know, he's like, I've been thinking about the way that you described that the other people that you've been intimate with, even on a relatively surface level, when you describe how they treated you, I realize that I'm not treating you too dissimilarly to those people. And I'm like, you're treating me better than they are. He's like, I know, but I'm still not giving you what you need. And then I could hear it in his voice what he's about to say. And I was like, no. You don't get to do that. You don't get to end this because of how you think. I feel you have to trust me, that I know what I'm doing, and I'm doing what I think is best for me. So if you want out of this, do it because you want out, not because you think that it's best for me or better for me that we not do this anymore. And he was like, okay, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust you and how you feel. But then it was so interesting because then he would say he cared about me, and I'd be like, no, you don't mean it.
It's so interesting that, because like now I keep thinking back on like our conversation, Tyla, about the conversation that Tyla had with Matt. And like the notion of like, well, you need to show up the way that you want to be received. And so, and most people, maybe not most, a lot of people don't approach life that way.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that it takes a really significant amount of self-awareness and like power and strength and awesomeness to like do the thing that Tyla was describing of like, well, I'm not making you feel good and that doesn't make me feel good, so I'm going to leave. Because part of what then they need to examine is like, well, why am I not making you feel good? Oh, because like,
right,
I'm consciously went into the situation, and how do I feel about open relationships, and did I mean to like have two women fall in love with me? I don't know. Like,
right,
like that requires a level of self-examination that I don't know a lot of people are willing and excited to do. So I think that is why it is more common to end up in the situation that you're describing, Jahna, the one that I've been in, where it's like, well, I think that like we should stop because you seem to be not great at this. Where I'm like, well, no, thank you.
Yeah.
But like that's a very different thing than like, this is making me not feel good and like all of those things and like
Yeah.
what does this mean, blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
it's the same like end action, ending the
Yeah.
relationship, and there are so many different ways to come to that.
Yeah.
Jahna, there's something that I'm really interested in, and it's something that I brought up at the very beginning of the episode when we were kind of introducing the topic about the fact that this breakup, you know, I've only known you, however many, 4 or 5, 6 months, and I don't know how long. Feels like a lifetime.
It feels like
But
so much longer.
it feels like this breakup was a huge like demarcation point for you in terms of like before the breakup and after the breakup, and that what you've experienced since the breakup has not been easy or felt good necessarily, and that, I mean, from what I know about you, I know that you're moving through all of that and coming to a place that feels much better inside of yourself right now, and that you've been working to get there. But I want to know, you know, like life before this breakup, life after this breakup, like what did this breakup, what did you make it mean about you? How did it affect your life? I'm actually much more interested in how the breakup affected you than I am, I think, in how much we've been talking about the relationship itself.
Definitely. Life before this breakup, I feel like I experienced emotions in a very binary way, if that's the word that I'm looking for. I either felt happy or I felt sad. And then with him, I felt overjoyed, furious, anxious, upset, curious, excited. So being with him, I felt all of the things. It changed me most in a way that I feel like I realized I was living my life, not necessarily consciously, but I was so focused on the outside. I was so product oriented in every sense and capacity of the phrase, and in more aspects of my life than I'd realized. If you would have asked me before I was with him, I would have told you that I was a pretty self-aware person. I would probably say I was more self-aware than most. And then after being with him, I guess I realized how little of myself I actually knew. And that was so surprising to me and hard for me, I think. Because initially I punished myself for that. It was, why do you keep choosing these people? Why do you keep choosing men who you know can't give you what you want? Why is this an area of your life that you feel like you just can't get, quote unquote, right? Why is this an area of your life that you have to define by getting right or wrong? Why did you do this for so long? Why didn't you speak up about this, that, and the third earlier? Why didn't you have the skills and the tools to communicate how you're feeling when you've been given so many tools to do so, and have been so blessed to have existed and moved through and explored so many emotionally and creatively supportive environments, and still you can't do this thing? And so I definitely went to a place of, whatever hurt you're feeling is your fault. You did this. You had every opportunity to change it, and then you didn't afterward. After the breakup, rather. And then I think I'm also still moving from that place of learning to be gentler with myself, and giving myself permission. And giving myself permission that maybe this is going to take time for me. And it was something that in my head I felt like so many other people were able to do, or, you know, there's a reason why other people have had this opportunity several times and much earlier than you have, and there's obviously something wrong with you that you not. And then the second that you get it, look at how you didn't utilize it to its fullest advantage or to its fullest opportunity. And I'm definitely learning to be gentler with myself about that, and realizing that, yeah, it might just take me, it might take me a little longer than it maybe does other people. And it made me examine that, you know, ultimately it's not them, it's me. It's something in me that I have to look at and work through. And once I do that, I think I'll be able to see and to receive the energy of someone who can be there for me. And I guess I realized that, like, I wasn't showing up for me, and I didn't realize that before. I would have told you that I was like, yeah, I think I'm there for me, for sure, beforehand. And then afterward, I'm like, oh, there are ways in which I'm not there for myself that I didn't even realize. And I feel like to go from a position of thinking I was pretty self-aware and then sort of being put in a new position where it's like, oh, you were less self-aware than you thought you were, was difficult for me, for sure, and something that I had a very difficult time wrapping my head around. And now I'm learning to get to a space where it can be exploratory, where I don't have to have the answers, where it doesn't have to be an answer, where I can be present with myself also, I guess.
I want to know how it's felt for you to move through this last year since the breakup. I'm just going to invite you to stay with the feeling part of it here and not be too in your head. But I want to know the evolution of how you've actually been feeling over the past year since this breakup.
First, I felt good. I felt like, okay, I did that. I can move on.
We can start with relieved.
Yes, yeah. So I felt relieved. And then I felt sad. I felt so sad and so lonely. I was very much missing being held. I was very much missing, kissing someone. I was very much missing being touched. That physical intimacy that I'd wanted for so long, that though it was imperfect when I had it, I missed having it at all. And then I felt angry, because I guess I felt tricked in a sense.
Yeah, I was going to say angry at who?
Angry at him, angry at myself. Angry at myself for giving what I felt like was my whole self at the time to someone who was not able to give his whole self to me. I sort of wanted it back, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm. I'll take my whole
Thank you very much.
Now, please. Thanks.
And I felt angry at him for accepting it and not returning it, even though I was told. I felt tricked somehow, and I don't really know. I tricked myself. No one else tricked me. But I did feel tricked, and I wanted I wanted to make it somehow his fault. I also felt tricked because he, moved in with his girlfriend, and at least when he first moved in, they were doing the domestic thing, and I felt so sad. I was like, but you told me that you didn't want that. And then it felt like, oh, you just didn't want that with me. Oh, okay. I wish you would have said that in the beginning, even though this is not at all a conversation that I'd had with this person. It's just something that I amassed in my head, and to make myself feel worse, to give myself more to punish myself about. And then I felt angry that I couldn't move on faster. I felt angry that I couldn't use this hurt as a catalyst to not still care about him in the way that I did. I felt angry that I couldn't be more clear-headed about my pain, I guess. That sounds sort of counterintuitive.
Well, it's funny because it's like, you were talking earlier about in the past your life being about producing, and it's like almost like wanting your hurt and your pain.
Right.
You just use the word catalyst, and you just use the word clear-headed, and it's like, rather than just like letting yourself be hurt and be in pain, you're like angry.
I wanted to do something
because your hurt and your pain is not amounting to something in this moment.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I feel like I stayed angry and frustrated for so long, was because I was like, it has to amount to something. This has to have like turned into something I can hold, or it has to turn into something I can wrap my mind around. And my heart's like, nah, bro. Like, it just is. It just hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so difficult for me to reconcile as well, because there was a part of me that was fighting sitting in it like I needed to for so long. And then when I think I'm just starting to sit in it now in a lot of ways, like I'm just starting to sit in it and let it be. But interestingly enough, I found that when I started doing that, it actually started hurting less, and I got less angry. And anger is also not really an emotion I feel like I could tangibly say I experienced before him. Like when I was little, definitely. And somehow, somewhere along the way, I lost that, and I would go straight to sad, like if something happened to me, rather than getting angry. And I actually set an intention during my relationship with him to like relearn to be angry, because like that's something I wanted. I was just frustrated that it wasn't amounting to anything, that you know, the intention that I'd set, that somehow learning to experience this anger was going to tangibly produce something within me, and then feeling the anger, and then feeling like it didn't produce what I thought it should produce. And then now I'm getting to a point where it's like the quote unquote product was you learning to feel it. Like that's it. That is the thing, and that is still huge. And letting it be big, and letting it be really. I'm not muscling it into something else, and that extends sort of entirely over my sense of my exploration of self right now, in terms of really just letting myself be. And no, I don't have anything else to say. Actually, I just realized.
I love what you said about like trying to like have the pain and the anger and the hurt like produce something, and rather than just being in them, and how now that you've started to just be in them, they've started to move and transform. And I was thinking specifically about the loneliness. It's like, I feel like you were really, when I met you, there was a lot of like angst around your loneliness, and you've softened so much around that. And I think it's so gorgeous that, I mean, you and I were just texting the other night, and that someone at a party asked you, I don't know exactly what the question was, and that you were able to, from what sounds like a really soft place, be like, you know, I'm sitting in some loneliness right now. And how that actually created a connection between you and another person.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, I do. You, Tyler, have been such an instrumental piece in me learning to just let myself be, and giving myself permission to let myself be and to have my emotions. One of the tools that we received when I was getting my undergraduate degree in performance was like, emotions aren't going to go away if you ignore them. They're only going to go away if you feel them. And I was like, okay, I want this feeling to go away, so I'm going to feel it. But then I approached it from, I'm feeling it. Like, this is me feeling it. I'm feeling the emotion so much. Exactly, literally, exactly. Like, this is me. I'm feeling them so hard right now. And that wasn't helpful. If you surprise. So, and then you were so helpful in being like, let's take a look at what that actually is, and what it feels like to just really just not even, just let the water sit in your hand. Just cup it gently. You know, you don't have to sort of let your palm flat out, because then it's going to fall out. But also, you can't make a fist with it, because it's also going to fall out. You just have to let the water sit. And sometimes the action, quote unquote, is just being with the water. And not, I was going to say watching the water, and it's not watching the water. It's just being with being with the water and holding space for the water. And only when I started...
God, what a gorgeous analogy.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Only when I started doing that did I start to really feel how I was feeling, and gave myself permission to be so sad in one moment, and then like so genuinely happy in the next, and then like maybe angry in the next. And it's exhausting, but I also feel so much better. And I think it's helping me. It helped me give myself also permission to be lonely. I think something that I was resentful of was the fact that, he told me that he was really going to miss me and really going to miss being with me. And that was so hard for me to understand and so hard for me to hear, because I'm like, but you're moving in with your girlfriend. I don't get how you could possibly be hurt by the situation. Because you get to have what you want, or what I, in my head, had decided that he really wanted. So I had not met anyone who I had, a similarly deep connection with since he'd left. And I was angry. I was like, you get to have the thing still. And I'm sort of back where I was before. And that feels not fair. And so to be with this loneliness and to sit with this loneliness took some of the anger out of that for me, which I'm so appreciative of, and allowed me to, I was looking at a picture of he and his partner the other day, and for the first time in a long time, it didn't make me feel sad. I had the thought, I was like, he loves her so much. And like, that's so nice. That's so nice. And I didn't feel that in a way that it was like, I'm saying this so that I get over it, and that like I'll get the things that I feel like I deserve. I just genuinely felt it, and that felt so good to feel for him. And I think, yes, being with the loneliness and being soft around it also makes it easier to share. It makes it feel like less of a... It feels like less of a rock on my chest and more of like a coat. That I'm a little warm in, but my body temperature is evening out in.
It's so funny because you and I just had this whole conversation around how you never take your coat off.
That's true. I don't.
Jahna was like talking about how she'll be inside for like a really, really, really long time and then realize that she's still wearing her coat.
Oh my God, I'm the opposite.
It's so funny. It's so true. And well, it's also because it's a loneliness that feels maybe not good, but it feels familiar. So it's like a coat that I want to take off, but I'm like nervous to take off too.
It's like your blankie.
It's a blankie. It is.
Mm-hmm. It's like, well, and how nice that loneliness has become your blankie instead of loneliness being this 10-ton weight that you have to carry around with you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I'm realizing it doesn't have to be the enemy. I was so scared. I was terrified it was going to be. I was terrified of it. I was terrified.
Well, and I want to be very clear. The person that Jahna was speaking to about her loneliness at a party the other night was a man.
Yes.
and they had an emotional connection.
Yeah.
You had an emotional connection with this person that you weren't expecting. No. And it was precisely because of the way you were holding the loneliness.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because if you'd still been in an angry place, you would have been like, you either wouldn't have been honest.
Yeah.
Or if you had been honest, there would have been so much barbed energy behind it that he would have been like, well,
exactly. Ooh, yes. Yeah. You're so right. You're so right. And it was so nice to I'm hesitant to reinforce this, but I feel like it was so nice to see, like, look, when you just have it, it starts to, quote unquote, produce a thing. It starts to have, when you just have it, you are more open to receiving the energy that shows you how it's working. whereas it was always working. I was just not able to receive it because I was spending so much energy muscling the situation. And now I can see how it's coming back to me. I can see how it's quote unquote making a thing when I'm just letting it be. I'm so much more open. And yeah.
Can I read a text message that you sent me about this?
Yeah.
Before you went to the party, you verbally set the intention to have at least one really good conversation at this party. And I reaffirmed that I am open to what the universe has to offer. And life loves me. And something romantically and professionally productive will come from my loneliness in all of its iterations. And then you said, because of this experience, you said, and the universe delivered so easily and so obviously, I almost didn't even realize it until after I left the party, having had, I'm going to skip that part, but a great time. And in reflecting, I realized that here's a person who, regardless of if we date, expressed genuine interest in me, gave me the attention I feel I require from a relationship right now, and met me at my level. And it was all because I'm doing the work to invite that kind of energy into my life. And I'm still learning to handle myself from this energetic place. Like, that is so gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I received that text and I was just like jumping up and down and screaming. Because the work that you have done around this, moving from a place to being angry at your loneliness to being soft and intimate with your loneliness is that's a lot of ground to cover.
Ooh, snaps to how you phrased that. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that in this podcast today, I was more interested in talking about that journey than the journey of the actual relationship with the ex.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that you ask that, because I feel like right now I'm not at a place where I could even map it.
Mm-hmm. What if you're never at a place where you can map it? How would that feel? Your journey with yourself.
I'm learning to have that feel fine, and then learning to have that feel good.
I hear the edge in your voice. You're like, so this is so interesting. Oh my gosh, because this is what you just said in your voice.
Yeah.
Was when you looked at that picture the other night and you were like, wow, he loves her so much, and you felt happy about it, instead of being like, wow, he loves her so much, and I'm saying this so that the universe will see how I'm appreciating.
Exactly.
So what just happened is I was like, and how does that feel? And you were like, I'm learning for that to feel fine.
Yeah.
You know, and I just want to, like, I love that just happened, because it's, sometimes you have to fake it till you make it around those kind of things. And it's like, it does not feel fine right now.
It
honestly,
doesn't. Yeah.
But I'm learning for it to feel fine, and I'm going to keep saying it until one day you look at it and you're like, you know what? This doesn't just feel fine. It feels good.
Exactly. Right now it feels really confusing. Mm-hmm. But so when I was in college, and we'd have these conferences, you know, at the end of each semester, where they're talking about our growth as actors, which a lot of the time amounted to our growth emotionally as people. And they told me one of the most important lessons that I feel like I had ever learned, and that they actually explicitly told me, you will keep learning this lesson throughout your entire life, is that you are never done with the emotional growth. Because that was a tendency that I had in the past, to be like, okay, had that heartbreak, check, like, did that. And now, like, I'm on the next rung of whatever ladder that doesn't exist. And, like, I'm moving up towards, I don't even know what, but I'm progressing forward. And they're like, you know, it's not about that. And I was like, okay, check, I understand that. They're like, no, that's exactly what we just said.
Oh my God, you're like, check,
like,
got it down.
Exactly.
Growth is never done, check.
Exactly.
Wait, but you know what I love is I just had this awareness just now as you were talking about my own evolution, and I was thinking about how this growth is never done, and how we do the work in layers, and that in the past I've been in a place where when I clear something and then it comes up again in a deeper or bigger way, it's like the next layer. In the past I was like, like, fuck, why is this coming up again? Like, I cleared this one already. Like, God damn it. And then the next stage of that was like, oh, okay, here's my next layer. Like, the thing is coming up again. Maybe that's kind of where I'm at right now, where I'm like, oh, hi, next layer of color. Like,
right.
I'm not necessarily happy to see you, but I'm not happy. And then
Yeah.
it's so funny because I'm realizing that where I want to be ultimately, and maybe where I need to start faking it till I make it, is to be like, yes, like fucking yes, the next level of this growth opportunity is here for me, which means that I get to go deeper and higher with this thing.
The fun thing is that that also has its layers, because I used to think that, and then for this entire year I was like, why the fuck is this here again? And then now it's when I'm finally back to the excitement of like, yeah, this is here.
It's so funny because it's like we all have the layers and we all go through the levels no matter how long you've been on this journey. And I mean, my coach Tara Marino always says, she's like, well, when it's over, I'm dead.
Right.
So I hope it's never over, like, or that someday it's over, but like not anytime in the near future. And it's like, that's the way I truly want to feel every time a challenge presents itself, to be like, oh boy, look, an opportunity to grow.
Exactly.
Like, this doesn't necessarily feel good, but at the core that there's an excitement around it.
Yes. And you were the first person, maybe you weren't the first person to introduce that idea to me, but you were the first person that I heard that. And I am excited to get to that place. It is confusing for me right now because I feel like I am in the midst of doing the work I didn't really realize how deeply entrenched a product-oriented sort of way through life was ingrained within me. And I'm just now starting to realize it. And it's, like, even as I approach getting rid of it, it's not something that I'm going to get rid of. I can say these words out loud, and I realize that it's like, it's something that I'm going to, this is going to be an invitation for me to learn maybe more times than I realize.
Well, and what's really gorgeous is that it is an invitation for you to discover and delight and ground in your own worth. Because I feel like that deeply entrenched belief of I have to produce, this has to produce, comes from a feeling that is what makes you worth something, and that's not true.
I have to show it.
I know you know that's not true.
Yeah. I feel like I have to show it somehow. Like, I have to show it. And it's not enough just to have it.
And the gorgeous thing, I mean, is that your pure presence is a gift. But like the other night at the party when you were just in presence and you're like, you know what? I'm lonely. And the person standing across from you looked at you and felt you and went, you're worth something. You know, like energetically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What else is present for you around this that you'd like to share with us before we wrap up?
I just keep thinking about one of the women that you had on your podcast who moved to California because of her husband's job, and they just had their Kim. And I think about how one of my favorite moments of the podcast was when you asked her the final question of where she was, or how she felt since the transition, or since the anniversary of the move. And she was honest and said, I want to say something really positive, but she said she was still angry. And that resonated with me so much in giving herself permission to still feel that. And I feel like that's sort of where I am right now. Not that I'm angry per se, but I'm still giving myself permission to not be over it. I'm giving myself permission to feel all of the feelings that I feel around it. I'm giving myself permission to also, in that I Am Not Your Guru documentary, he says to blame intelligently, to also blame the person who you feel like hurt you for the things that they gave you too. and for the gifts that being with him gave me, and for the gifts that he gave me, and for the kindnesses that he showed me. I'm learning to also, quote unquote, blame him for that too. And allowing myself, another part of me was like, the faster you get over this, the faster you'll be able to get what you want. And just trusting and believing that, like, that scarcity, it's not scarce. And so I think about that podcast moment so often, so often. And I'm like, I want to live my life from that presence and from that honesty, and from that sense of permission.
So, Jahna, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes once more and take a breath and feel how you're feeling right now in your body as you reflect on the breakup and everything that's happened before and since, and share with us in one word how you're feeling.
Ready.
I love that.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
No one said that before. That might be my favorite one that anyone's ever said. Not that it's a contest.
Of course.
Except
no.
Tyler just made it.
No.
Well, I guess, what the response was? The response inside of me, that when you said that, was, that is how I want to feel. Ready. Okay, so our last question is, if you could go back to a year ago today and speak directly to yourself from the woman that you are now, what would you say to her?
That this is okay. And that you're going to be okay. And it feels big. And it will continue to feel big. And you will also continue to feel more big things. And that's a good thing. It's a scary thing. But it's an exciting thing. And it's like you are living your life. Like, you are in it. You are the only one doing it. And it's not going to happen to you. You have to participate. And this is what it feels like. It feels all of the feels to do so. But that's so enriching, and it feels so much fuller than where you were before, and that's exciting.
Can you also just tell her you love her? Just do it for me.
I love her. I love her. I love her. She's doing so much great work and, like, asking so many questions, which is so funny because I normally ask so many questions anyway, but asking those questions of herself and sticking with it, and not, I don't want to say giving up, because I don't think I would ever give up on myself, but not reverting to easier tendencies.
Oh my God, Jahna, thank you so much for talking to us today and being my friend.
Thank you for having me and for being my friend.
Oh my God.
That was the best thing anybody's ever said, like, on the podcast. I know people say it in life often, but it was just funny the way that you said it, because it's on a podcast.
Jahna was texting. You were texting me the other night about the party, and I was literally saying out loud to Matt, I was like, I just love my friends so much.
I love you, Tyler, and I'm so excited to have finally met you, Sally. I'm so excited.
Yeah, this is going to be great. We're going to have nonstop parties.
All of them, just all the parties.
Oh my goodness. And thank you, listeners, for partying with us today. Yes. I would love to know what this episode and this conversation have sparked inside of you, because there was so much really gorgeous content here. Jahna, do you want to plug your social media? Do you want people to be able to find you, follow you?
I do. I am Jahna, J-A-H as in Hannah, N as in Nancy, A, Ferron, F as in Frank, E-R-R-O-N as in Nancy, -Smith on Facebook,
You're saying so many words, and we're gonna put it in the show notes.
Okay, perfect. Because I've got two names, or I say them, and then I watch
J
people's
is in
faces
Jupiter.
go blank and
U is in Uranus.
It just does not compute what my name is. They're like, words. So then,
good.
you can find me at that name on Facebook to check out any of the plays that myself or my colleagues have going up. I work with some incredible artists, and I would love to share some art with y'all if you're in New York.
Hooray!
Yay!
Sally, where can the people find you on the internet?
You can find me at Sally Simply on all the social media, or at sallymercedes.com, or at unmutedexpression.com. And if you're in LA, let's be friends. I'm going to do full moon and or new moon circles, and I'd love to have you there. Email me. You can email us at ayearagopodcast@gmail.com. And you can just be like, I'm in LA, Sally, let's hang.
Oh my gosh. And if anybody wants to find me on the internet, I'm at Tyler Fowler on all the social media, tylerfowler.com. And we are ayearagopodcast.com, A Year Ago Podcast on all social media. Mm-hmm. And you can email us at ayearagopodcast@gmail.com about anything and everything. And we really hope that you do.
Mm-hmm. And our intro-outro music is provided by Zena Hell, who's amazing. And you can follow her at ZYNAHEL on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and SoundCloud. Those are all of the things. We did it, guys. We recorded this episode.
Hooray! I didn't know if it was ever going to happen. Wait, how many times have you had to guess? Do you think that the audio stopped and we had to reload? I would say at least 10.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, Jahna, thank you. I love you so much.
Thank you for having me. I love you too. Thanks again, guys.
Okay. Until next time.
Peace out.
Okay, bye.